there's a wave of environmental protests that are sort of sweeping the nation, and you're seeing a lot of direct conflict, a direct vandalism from people who want their governments to swear off oil. So this is from the organization Just Stop Oil. They posted today, I've got a fuel non-proliferation treaty, baby, and I'll write your name. Just Stop Oil paints private jet hours after Taylor Swift lands. 2 Just Stop Oil supporters have painted multiple private jets on an airfield where Taylor Swift's jet landed a mere hours before. They are demanding that the incoming UK government commit to working with other governments to agree on an equitable plan to end the extraction and burning of oil and gas and coal by 2030. So you'll see some images here. You have these young activists who spray painted these jets. One of them, Cole McDonald, who's 22, said, "We're living in 2 worlds, one where billionaires live in luxury, able to fly in private jets away from the other, where unlivable conditions are being imposed on countless millions. Meanwhile, this system that is allowing extreme wealth to be accrued by a few to the detriment of everyone else is destroying the conditions necessary to support human life and a rapidly accelerating, never-ending, quote, cruel summer. Billionaires are not untouchable. Climate breakdown will affect every single one of us." So that's obviously an allusion to Taylor Swift. This comes the day after other activists from Just Stop Oil sprayed orange dust all over Stonehenge, the 5,000-year-old monument, right on the eve of the summer solstice celebration there. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, condemned the incident, this from BBC, as a, quote, disgraceful act of vandalism. A leader of the Labour Party, Sir Keir Hamster, I'm not even pronouncing that correctly at all. I'm just keep going. So the damage was outrageous and described Just Stop Oil as pathetic. Members of the public were heard shouting no and seen running to intervene as campaigners ran up the stone circle at the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So environmental activism has a history of being very public. I know in the U.S. we can talk about Weather Underground and their actions, especially in the 70s and 80s. It seems like European environmental activists in particular are similar to American progressive activists in that they want their demonstrations to be bold and in front of your face. You'll see this often in the U.S. with people will go, throw stuff at paintings in the National Portrait Gallery. Is this part of this younger generation? Why are we seeing this happen? Or is this something that every generation does and we just feel like it's different?
Well, these people are stupid. If they got what they wanted, what they're afraid of would happen immediately, right? If you stop using fossil fuels, then you stop being able to fertilize the crops that are providing food aid to places that don't have the ability to grow crops. You stop the production of all of the ability to transport food around the world. These people are so incredibly stupid, they can't even understand that if they got what they wanted, millions and millions and millions, billions of people would die. Literally billions. If you did the whole Just Stop Oil. This is absolutely ridiculous. And these people are, I know that you can't explain anything to them, that they have been totally co-opted by ideologues. I know that there's a whole ton of the environmental, not lobby, but the environmental movement and stuff is really about getting rid of capitalism. They say that capitalism is what causes all the environmental problems, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's totally the opposite of history. Like, you can look at what happens when you open markets. You can look at what happened in China. Even though China isn't a capitalist society, they were having a massive problem feeding their population until they opened the markets, and once they opened markets and allowed people to have some amount of control over their property and control over their time, not a lot, but some, you had this massive explosion of economic activity, and you had a whole bunch of people that could feed themselves. And when you allow markets to thrive, you have fewer poor people. You have fewer people die of starvation. There is no such thing as a poor country that uses a lot of energy. And energy is what keeps human beings alive. If you have a low output of energy from your country, that means you are going to have only so many human beings that can survive in that country. There is no such thing as a low energy rich country. It doesn't exist. And rich countries are how you feed your populations. There are going to be people that are going to excel beyond what other people would consider reasonable. They're going to make more, and they're going to be more productive, and they're going to have success in ways that upset people that see the world in such a myopic way. But that doesn't change the fact that if you have markets and you have some amount of property rights, this will prevent your citizens from starving. And oil is what makes the entire economy go. This is idiocy.
Yeah. You said myopic, short-sighted. It's like first order thinking. Yeah. It's like they look at, okay, oil is posing this sort of problem. Therefore, if we remove it, good thing will happen. It's just first order thinking. They're not thinking about the consequences of their behaviors of removing oil, which you're pointing out. On top of that, it's ignorant. They don't have the information understanding that the carbon in the air can be recaptured and reused. So you really want to get more oil and burn more and then recuperate more and turn it into graphene so you have more building materials. So it's stupidity mixed with ignorance, but it's just loud people. It's very easy for humans to go monkey and to get together in big groups and start banging on stuff and throwing paint on crap. And that's what we're looking at right here.
Well, also, did you know statistically, it's developing countries that are the biggest producers of greenhouse emissions today. So basically what these people are arguing is, let the West have its oil, have its development, but you developing countries that we, in theory, support, you're not allowed to develop at the same pace that the West did. So that's the first thing. You know what also oil and natural gas does? It prevents war.
Yep.
You know what happened when George W. Bush was president? Russia invaded Georgia, and they continue to occupy about 20% of Georgia. You know what happened when Obama was president? Putin moved in and took over Crimea. You know what happened when Trump was president? There was no war. You know what happened when Biden became president? There's a full-on war right now between Russia and Ukraine. Do you know what the missing factor was here? When Trump was president, as I mentioned earlier, he unleashed American shale and oil and created a net exporter out of America for the first time since World War II. This depressed prices. It allowed America to control the global trade, the global energy routes, production, and our foes or adversaries, whatever you want to call them, countries like Russia, did not have the money to go on a full-scale war like they're doing right now, where oil is at almost record levels, while with Trump, it was almost a record down pricing. So that's also something that these kids, they're protesting, they're doing whatever they're doing, and they might actually be protesting Russia, but actually by what they're doing, they're actually filling Putin's coffers. So it's actually ironic. Maybe they don't know what they're doing. Some of this has actually been probably financed by some of these groups who want to see oil prices high, and they want to see the destabilized oil market, and they want to see countries like the UK not produce its own oil and natural gas. So it's really stupid what they're doing, and I don't think they really know what they're even up to.
I think a lot of young people were sort of groomed into thinking dramatic acts of protest for progressive causes were cool and were ultimately sort of heroic in this way, right? I know a lot of millennials report that one of the reasons they either defer or don't have children is because of their climate anxiety, so to speak. They're so concerned about the impact their children could have on the environment that they think ultimately would be better not to have them. And that's the sacrifice, this right decision they're making for other people. And I think some of it might be the rise of Greta Thunberg. I know, for a while, I ran into a high school teacher when I was, after I graduated college, who was like, wow, she's just an amazing, teenager and walking out for the environment and this, that, and the other. There was sort of a celebration of young people who put the environment above everything else. I think it is misleading. I'm happy for people to have pet causes that they feel passionately about, but some of these acts of ultimately protest, but vandalism, and some of the demands that go with them don't seem logical to me, and they don't seem thought out. It seems like it is about being able to get your picture on the news as opposed to making really impactful trainings for potentially, whatever you think you're doing.
Yeah, Churchill, I think it was, who said it. That if you're not a liberal when you're 25, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative when you're 30, you have no brain. And look, we were all in university at one point. We all kind of wanted to be part of the group. We all wanted to be part of that herd mentality. Like we've seen so many people attach themselves to a lot of these pet projects, like you just mentioned. And I think a lot of these people, I'm assuming most of them are young. I see some older guys and women in that picture. But, I think they just want to be part of something greater than their boring lives. And I think a lot of them are just like really misguided and misinformed, especially when it comes to this particular issue. Actually, what they're doing is they're causing more devastation, more havoc, more war, and less economic growth in the developing third world that they, in theory, want to provide for. So it's actually fascinating to see why they would be protesting this when actually there's so much evidence that what they're protesting actually doesn't cause harm to people in the globe.
I wonder if ultimately the end goal of all of this is chaos, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, all of this is to have generations that blame older generations for their issues and avoid making a younger generation because they think it's all doomsday. I mean, at what point does chaos become the name of the game, whether it's for environmentalism or Palestine or anything? What point is that the end goal?
Well, I mean, I personally think that, a stable civilization doesn't revolt, right? So if you have a happy civilization that is mostly comprised of people that feel like they have meaning in their lives and they're satisfied with their lives, those people aren't going to be prone to be agitators for some kind of significant social change. There are people that have that kind of mentality anyways, that there's always going to be a certain segment of the population that is just that kind of like protest kind of person, and that's what they enjoy doing and stuff. But most people, if they feel...
Can't they just go listen to metal music and destroy some rooms or something?
You'd think you could just go get in the pit and get it out. But sometimes, they can't. So that being said, like people do have to have meaning in their lives. And the more you can have a connection to your community and your family and stuff like that, the more you have that, the less likely it is that you're going to have some kind of revolution or some kind of significant social change. And I think if you look around at the messages that are being sent by the government, again, things like the alternative lifestyles, right? And if you want to have an alternative lifestyle, I don't care. But if the government is going to have a message, it should be pro-social messages, which means pro-family messages. You can live an alternative lifestyle in the United States, and that's not a problem. We don't have to have all of the focus be on alternative lifestyles and make it out as if traditional lifestyles are to be hated or to be scorned or it's bad. These traditional lifestyles are actually what makes a solid foundation for your whole society. So the idea that the federal government is messaging to the people that it is bad to marry and have kids and do these kind of things, and it's messaging to the people that we want to center alternative lifestyles and stuff, that is a terrible, terrible recipe for your society. And we see it in the fact that you've got men that are not achieving in massive amounts the way that they used to. Men are falling behind in going to college. Men are dropping out of society. Men are not taking up the roles that men typically have taken up as leaders in society. Society basically treats men very badly. You've got a push to have women not start families. You have a push to have women go into
the workforce and stay there forever.
Exactly. And whereas it's fine if women go, you can, again, in a liberal society, you can have that and have that be something that women can do. But the idea that the government pushes that narrative is terrible, and it's anti-social, because the foundation of your society is the family. So I think that there are people that want to see the fundamental structures that make up the United States broken down. I think things like property rights, I think things like family units and traditional families, I think all these things inhibit the revolution that the far left wants to see. And so the more you have these kind of ideas put into the center and put as the idealized lifestyle, the more you're going to see destabilization in your country, and the more you're going to see depression, and the more you're going to see suicides, and the more you're going to see young women deciding that they hate their lives, and young men checking out, and people saying that they don't trust each other and stuff. These are all symptoms of policies that the government has been pushing for, at the very least, like I said earlier, since 2012. Possibly since before, arguably since before, because of the media and et cetera. So that's my sense of the situation.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.